What is up, Doom Patrol fans? We are back with yet another episode review and breakdown of course, Doom Patrol Season 2. And this is Episode 6, Space Patrol. So, just a quick spoiler warning here if you have not yet seen this episode. So, go ahead and check it out on either DC Universe or HBO Max, whatever you have. Because I'm about to jump into all the spoilers and break down everything that happened in this episode of Doom Patrol. So, now that you've been warned, let's jump right into it. So basically this episode is all about the aftermath of last episode, because as we saw at the end of last episode, Dorothy wished for Candlemaker to kill Baby Doll and the other fiery personality that Jane also has. But at the beginning of this episode, Cliff found Jane's body, just lying on the ground covered in a bunch of nasty candle wax, which kind of looked like string cheese, like really nasty cheese. But it just looked disgusting. But then we actually get a look at what's going on inside of Jane's mind in the underground, and all of the undergroundians, as I'm calling them, are basically mourning their fellow personalities, of course, and they decide to have a funeral and throw their bodies down the well, just like Miranda did. So, obviously Jane thinks that's just a terrible idea, but just as she convinces the other personalities not to do it, Miranda shows up. That's right, Miranda. She's actually alive. She floats out of the well. So she's not dead. I mean, we thought she was, because she just threw herself in the well and killed herself. But no, she's alive, because apparently she's been reborn. So she convinces all the other personalities to throw the bodies in, and then both Baby Doll and the Fire one will be reborn as well, and be even better than before. But, I'm thinking that this is probably going to be more like a Pet Cemetery type thing. Like, yeah, they'll come back to life, but they're not going to be all there. Like, they're going to be different than they were before. Like, for example, Baby Doll, when she comes back to life, she may be something like Chucky. So, that's definitely not good, but I'm definitely excited to see what happens next. Especially when things get really crazy here, as Miranda takes over as primary and basically kicks out Jane. So now Miranda is primary, and the other Doom Patrol members don't know that yet. So I'm interested to see whether or not they're going to automatically notice that it's not Jane, or if they're going to be living with her thinking it's Jane and not knowing that she's actually Miranda the whole time. So I'm definitely excited to see more from that. But Vic in this episode is in the middle of a storyline that keeps him very distant from the other Doom Patrol members. Like, he's very separate from everyone else. Like, he's literally in a separate city, and he never has any scenes with any of the other characters, and he's not even in Doom Manor or anything. So he's just spending all of his time with Ronnie, which is great, and I love the relationship, but I would just love to see more of him with the actual Doom Patrol. But as he's spending more time with Ronnie in this episode, he does some scans on her to find out how he can make her experience less pain. And we basically find out from his scans that there is technology embedded in her spine, or at least there was until it got ripped out. But it's like there's still parts of it left in there, and it's poisoning her and basically killing her. And then there's a big plot twist here when you find out that that technology is actually from Star Labs and Calder Robotics. So Niles Calder and Silas Stone have something to do with this, and they had something to do with creating this. But when Cyborg actually calls his father, he's being very shady as usual. It's a very Silas Stone classic move there, and he's just like, yeah, forget it, ignore it, and I don't know anything about that. But he's got to be hiding something. So I guess we'll have to just wait and see where this goes from here. Maybe Ronnie will actually eventually become part cyborg, just like Vic, and maybe they'll be like a robot couple. So that'll be definitely interesting. But another storyline that I'm loving in this episode, and just this season as a whole, is Larry and Rita. So, of course, they spent last episode together trying to fix broken relationships with Larry's family, but obviously that didn't work out too well. So in this episode, the two actually part ways, and Rita went to her first rehearsal for the play that, of course, she is now a part of, as we learned in last episode. And we find out that this play is actually basically about that first episode from the first season, and that was when the Doom Patrol first went out on the town, and Mr. Nobody opened up that giant hole in the middle of the town, and it like swallowed up everything, and there was a random donkey, and of course Rita was a blob. So the whole play is about that, and Rita meets this person that's actually playing the blob, which is Rita. So she meets the person playing herself. And so Rita just has to sit through this rehearsal listening to all these offensive comments about how it's just a monstrous blob. And I mean, obviously they don't know that that's Rita and that she was the blob, but I mean, it's just crazy. Like, how are they that mean? Like, at the end, when Rita was going over some notes with the person that's actually playing the blob, she was like, oh yeah, and it's like she's just craving attention from her mother, and she was like going along with how Rita actually feels, and then all of a sudden she was like, but then she's actually a real monster, and she just has to destroy the city and everything. Like, wow, why you gotta be so harsh? But I do definitely like seeing this. I like seeing Rita getting back into acting, since things didn't work out too well the first time. But specifically because she's doing a play, because in real life I actually do plays, and I have a whole bunch of fun doing that. So it's cool to be seeing Rita doing this on the show. But like I said, Larry went off and did his own thing in this episode, separate from Rita, because he actually went back to Doom Manor while Rita was at her rehearsal, and Larry meets these astronauts because apparently they were working for Niles and they went on a research mission, but then they went missing, and now, like 65 years later, apparently they're still alive, and these crazy astronauts have a really interesting storyline here, where we find out that the female of the group, who I believe is named Valentina, actually has a negative spirit inside of her, just like Larry, except hers is green, and green is my favorite color, so of course I think hers looks cooler. But we basically find out that she's learned to control and master her negative spirit over only 5 years. And then on top of that, the rest of her crew, her fellow astronauts that were part of her team, Zip and Specs, are actually dead, and apparently they died like decades ago, but then some kind of plant infected them, and then it basically went into like autopilot mode of their body, so that was pretty crazy. But at the end of the episode, Valentina tells Larry that maybe he should go to space and to live with his negative spirit there, because I mean, that's where the negative spirit came from, that's where he met the negative spirit, so that's probably where he'd want to live, and maybe that's where he will end up at the end of the series. You know, maybe when the series ends, when the Doom Patrol part ways and they split up, maybe Larry will go to space to live in peace and harmony with his negative spirit. But I think it's an interesting idea, but what's even more interesting is that at the very end, Larry says he's going to go back to visit his family to finally make amends, but I mean, honestly, that's just such a bad idea. I mean, he's tried to do this multiple times in just the first couple episodes of the season, and just last episode, when like his grandson got murdered, he almost got arrested and taken back to the ant farm, and you know, his son betrayed him and everything. So, you know, just your average family reunion, but I don't know why you'd want to go back there, because it doesn't seem like he'll be able to change his son's mind and his opinion, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But finally, let's get into the final storyline of the episode, which is actually the main storyline of the episode, which really gives the episode its name, Space Patrol, because Cliff and Niles actually go into space in one of Niles' rocket ships to go get Dorothy, because we know that Dorothy went off in one of his spaceships and just flew off to space because she knows that she's a danger, she knows she's dangerous and she can't be trusted, so she wants to go off and live on her own on the moon. So I find that really interesting and cool that she's like taking that responsibility, but Niles thinks that she'll be safer in his hands and protected by her. So he and Cliff go up into space, and we got a spaceship powered by some kind of magical goat that eats apples. So, I mean, that was weird, but I mean, this is Doom Patrol. It's just honestly kind of normal on the show at this point. But when they get there, obviously Niles doesn't actually go out there on the moon because they don't have a spacesuit like Dorothy does or anything. So that's why Cliff can go out, because he's a robot and he doesn't need to breathe. So he goes out to retrieve Dorothy, and she explains to him, like, I can't be trusted and everything, but eventually, luckily, he does get her and ends up bringing her back to the ship. So yeah, they're going back home, but that's just what they want you to think until now, when we get to the big cliffhanger of the episode, when for some reason Niles locks Cliff out of the spaceship and then like just shoots him out into space. So that's a pretty crazy ending to this episode, with just Cliff floating out there in space. So why did Niles do this? I have literally no idea. I mean, maybe he's like protecting Cliff, or he doesn't trust Cliff. But I really don't know, because it doesn't make any sense. But the chief, Niles Caulder, is definitely a strange man, and you can really never trust him. Like, he doesn't really trust anyone either. So he's pretty shady, and he does some bad stuff sometimes. Obviously, as you can tell just from the big reveal out last season, that he was responsible for everyone's accidents. But he's got some problems that he has to deal with here. But yeah, like I said, I have no idea why he did this, really. Because I mean, Cliff just helped him save his daughter, so I don't get it. But if you have any ideas on why Niles did this, let me know down in the comments below. But yeah, guys, so this is pretty much everything that happened in this episode of Doom Patrol. It was a great episode with great cliffhangers, great character development, and I just loved everything about it. And I obviously like the episodes with bigger stuff that have more action and stuff, but I also really like episodes like this where a lot happens but there's not as much action and it's more just storytelling and character development. So I really like this kind of stuff when you get the kind of breaks in here with this. So yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I really liked watching Space Patrol. But what did you guys think about this episode? Let me know all your thoughts and theories down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video. And please hit that subscribe button so I can keep you up to date on everything that goes on in the DC life.